Good morning, Mr. Manas.
Good
Pleased to
morning.
have you
Thank
over
you.
here.
Thank you so much.
And it's a pleasure for us to be speaking with you.
Thank you.
Well, now that the budget is out, we have tons of things to discuss on, but our focus remains intact and same. First of all, we need to know what is your viewpoint in times to come. How will the workplace culture evolve? If we're talking about Viksit Bharat,
Right.
how do you imagine or envision the evolvement of workplace culture in times to come?
Right. So I think, first of all, thanks for having me here and glad to talk to you. So I think the Viksit Bharat 2047, the areas where I think from a people perspective,
Exactly.
where things will work, is that I think the world ahead is going to be completely digital.
Okay.
So it's going to be a space in which there will be a lot of digital collaboration, which is already happening. But the way I look at it, next 10, 15 years is going to be a lot of digital collaboration.
Okay.
So wherein I think a lot of Gen Z and youngsters are going to come to the workforce.
Okay.
So which means I think the organizations need to build a culture, workplace culture, which is very inclusive in nature, which caters to all segments of people.
Okay.
Starting from Gen Z, Gen Y, and the millennials. That's one. Secondly, you need to have a very kind of a workplace wherein there is communication is very transparent. People feel absolutely well connected with each other.
Okay.
That's the kind of culture that you look at going forward.
Okay.
And you will not have those kind of places wherein there would be cabins, there would be like there would be hierarchies, etc. So here is the millennials, they prefer a very different level of engagement with their company. So
Okay.
therefore you would expect a sort of a very highly collaborative workplace, an
Okay.
inclusive culture
Okay.
wherein people feel motivated to come. And that's one area. The other area, quickly, I want to tell you is that your policies from an HR point of view, policies and systems processes,
Okay.
also need to cater to this segment of the people. So, for example, when we were growing as professionals, we have always been habituated to work from office. So now there would be a workplace wherein you have to have a hybrid kind of a culture which is going to come. So people will prefer to work from office as well as from home.
Yeah. So
So
there
I
should be
think
a mix of both.
absolutely, organizations need to facilitate that kind of a culture. But when you get into from a work from office to a work from home culture, which means organizations need to create those kind of enablers.
Okay.
How people will work seamlessly in those environments.
But sir,
So
in
that's
today's era, while you're speaking of hybrid, and not just you, there are leaders from this industry speaking of hybrid,
right,
but we also see examples of TCS.
right.
I wouldn't say forcing, but convincing them to come back to work into offices. Is it something that they feel that the productivity is getting hampered from home, or you see it is only talk of the town that employers should trust employees, while there is this lack of trust?
You're right. I think, in a way, I think between the employer and employee, there has to be a trust. When you work in a 21st century workplace, if you don't have trust on your employees, that means you lose out. But having said that, I think the example that you gave about TCS, it's more to do with they were working completely from home. So they wanted, because of the post-COVID scenario.
Exactly.
So in a way, they wanted to have a hybrid culture, which was not happening
Okay.
for quite some time because of the pandemic. So eventually, they wanted to have a mix kind of a model wherein people work. Some people work from home, or at least 2-3 days work from home and 2-3 days work from office, which was the case pre-pandemic level anyway. So I think in a way,
but that was specific to IT industry. If I may
that's specific to IT industry.
It's
right.
not in any generic industry that you may speak of. Let's say marketing or say sales. We were very much coming to offices on daily basis,
right.
But then yes, we've always seen that IT culture works in a very different format.
Correct.
And they have segments wherein if they're working over the hours, they get paid for that segment as well.
That's right. No, but I think, you are right. The way IT sector can work through a hybrid model, But let me tell you, this myth that the non-IT companies cannot work in a hybrid model also is entirely not true. You know, it's been a myth so far. So
Okay.
frankly speaking, post-COVID, when there's a lockdown, there's a pandemic-induced lockdown. So business was, okay, 2-3 months business was not as usual, but then gradually business became as usual, and people were working from home. For example, a company like me, mine, we were working from home and working from office. So we quickly switched over to an, sort of a hybrid model, which we never thought of that we could get into. So it's not entirely impossible, but it's a mindset. Organizations need to think creative, need to
Okay.
think in a different kind of, because when you would have a lot of millennials coming into your workforce, and with the technology and the communication easiness that is there today, I think it's not entirely impossible that you cannot have a hybrid model for the non-IT companies. It is
Okay.
possible, but one has to think creatively and innovatively with, and as you rightly said, I think there has to be an immense trust between the employee and the
Exactly.
employer. If that's not happening, then obviously there is a question mark on the productivity and other things will come in place. But I strongly believe, as an HR professional, I think um, when that element trust is established and you have created an ecosystem where people can work in a hybrid environment, it is not impossible. People
Do you
can.
also feel that there should be an impetus and discussion or focus on increasing work hours, since we've seen that recently Karnataka government is under immense pressure wherein companies are forcing that we should have 14-hour work day, which means approximately 2 days of work in one day. And we have actors turned politicians as well as Infosys chairman also speaking on the fact that weekend culture is not India's culture. It is something that we've adapted from West and should abolish it completely, considering that India is still a growing economy and we got to work harder.
Right.
So do you think work-life balance is just a matter of for leaders to boast about their companies on camera, while in action we see quite number of companies talking about increasing work hours, and then there'll be exactly no work-life balance left, because out of 24 hours, if 14 hours you're expecting them to work, and 10 hours, which is inclusive of sleep plus travel, because now you're even expecting
Right.
that 2 to 3 days they should come to work
Right.
as well. So what is your view about this?
So, well, I, for one, always believe in having work-life balance,
Okay.
if you ask me personally.
Okay.
But having said that, I am not a strong advocate of, asking people to work on the weekends.
Okay.
Having said that, I think what matters is the productive hours in a day. I always believe in one thing: if a person works for 8 to 9 hours productively in a day, I think you don't need to ask people to work for more than 12, 14 hours, frankly speaking.
Okay.
Um, and that productivity, to make an employee productive, is a combination of various factors. Is the organization how it creates an enabling environment? If you work for 14 hours and then but 9 hours is not, you're spending 9 hours in non-productive areas, then you are not going to achieve your objective.
Okay.
So I think organization, rather than asking people to work for 14 hours and then uh, creating an imbalance in their work life and personal life, my suggestion would be, mm, create an ecosystem wherein you can create a productive hours, wherein
Make those 8 hours productive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Build an ecosystem, create those enablers, trust people that they work for you,
Okay.
focus on their objectives, hold them accountable for the jobs that they're doing. I think if one can create those kind of enablers, I get a feeling that you don't need to really go for these 14, 15 hours of workplace.
Well, I feel that the government here listens, and instead of increasing work hours, they try to make these existing hours productive, help their employees
That's
to
right. That's right.
extract the maximum,
That's right.
and not hamper their work-life balance. That is
Absolutely.
actually
One more thing I just would like to add: by putting people into a 14 hours work schedule, you actually, instead of achieving that objective of making people more productive, you will make them actually more non-productive, because the moment the world is moving towards a sort of a 4 days a week and things like that, they are moving to a 32 to 40 hours of the week.
Yeah.
And we cannot really go in the opposite direction.
Even if we are a growing economy, we cannot slog, na?
Absolutely.
Indians are known to be already slogging all these years, and we're considered to be one of the most hardworking people to work with. And then increasing the limit on top of it is actually, I feel, is injustice to it.
In a way, I think it's in a way, you are right. But again, as I said, I am not someone who would strongly advocate to go for these 14, 15 hours. Given a choice, I would rather focus on making an employee productive and give him his due of leisure as much as he does the job of this thing, work. But rather, I would focus more. And secondly, one more thing I want to tell you, that you live in a world which is well connected, so interconnected.
Right.
With the advent of technology, with the communication channels that you have, you are anyway connected beyond your office hours. So I think it's really not required in my view, personally.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so
for
much.
your
Thank
insights.
you, Pat.